October 17th, 2014, we're at the home of Bob Edward Thomas in Shelton, Connecticut. Mr. Thomas was a member of the 87th Infantry Division during the Second World War. Today, Mr. Thomas is going to take us through a journey as a young man and up until the days when he returned from service. Mr. Thomas, thank you for joining us today. I'd like to start off by asking you, where were you born?
Bridgeport, Connecticut.
And what high school did you attend?
Central High School.
And Central High School, was that also in Bridgeport?
Yes.
Okay. And were you an athlete at the time? Did you participate on any athletic teams?
I ran on a track team my senior year.
In your
I ran a mile and a half mile, broad jump, high jump, side pole vaulting. You can't do that. No one can do that. And I did everything. I took third place in the state meet, and that when I got home at 5 o'clock in the morning, it was the day after my prom. I laid down for about a half hour, and I had to get down to high school, so I didn't have any sleep. And then the guy that took second place was a step ahead of me, and the guy that took first place was a step ahead of him. And if I broke a little earlier, I would have made it. But if I had gotten a good night's sleep, I think I would have made it. But anyway, that's where I was.
I want to ask you a question. December 7th, 1941. Do you remember where you were?
I was home. I was home getting up to go to church.
And how soon after waking up do you remember hearing the news about Pearl Harbor being attacked?
I don't really remember. You know, I was young then. Actually, it was a Sunday. And we get ready to go to church, yeah. That's
What year were you born in?
no,
Oh, your birthday.
1925. November 14th, 1925.
And today, that would make you you're getting ready to turn 89.
Turn 89 next month.
And in 1941, you would have been approximately...
Well, 25 to 40 would be 15, and 16 years old.
16 years old. So we would have put you somewhere as a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's basically around the time when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Do you remember the atmosphere in your hometown in Bridgeport after hearing that the Japanese attacked the American fleet in Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I do. Well, it's hard to put in words, but we you know, everybody was shocked. I mean, really. The first day, it was hard getting over, really absorbing it all, but then we did. But it's just like with everybody else. It wasn't a very pleasant time.
Now, you're one of 3 sons, correct?
That's right, and a sister.
And 1 sister. So there were 4 children in the family.
Yeah.
Of the 3 of you, did anyone else serve in the military?
My 2 brothers did. They were both in the service.
Were they Army as well?
Yes, they were both Army. One was in the South Pacific and one was in the European.
Tell me about your brother who was in the South Pacific. What was his name?
Billy.
Billy. And do you remember what unit he was attached to in the Pacific?
No, I don't know what unit he was attached to, but he was, he steered a landing barge.
I'm sorry?
He steered a landing barge.
Oh, he steered a landing barge. And your other brother was in Europe as well?
He was in Europe. He was an anti-aircraft. He was DJ +6.
Okay, when he landed on the beaches.
Yeah.
Do you? He came in on Omaha as well?
Yes.
He did. When did you enter the military? What year was that?
1944.
And your both brothers had already been in before you.
Yes.
Okay, in 1944, do you remember when you first left the United States to head to Europe?
Yeah, we down to Queen Elizabeth. And they say loose lips sink ships. We had the whole of New York waving bye-bye to us when we went out of the harbor. 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
That seems to be quite the contrast to what they say. It's comical.
Right.
So in 1944, you're heading to England. What port did you arrive at?
I landed in Scotland. Oh man.
Was it up in Edinburgh?
No. Give me the name of the town. Okay.
Well, we'll research that, and we'll add that in.
I know my name, but I forgot my name too.
Well, you know, sometimes these questions come up very quickly, and you know the answer. It's on the tip of your tongue. But in this particular situation, it'll come to us later on.
Anyway, the boat came into the harbor, and it docked up to a big floating dock. They didn't tie up to a pier or anything. And we got down on the dock, and he took us with a landing barge into shore. Took a long time. I don't know, this boat was about 18,000 guys on it. And we took the train down to Southampton, where we got on a freighter and went over to Le Havre. Le Havre was a city, a harbor that was completely burned. Everything was black. Came in there with nothing. There was another raft, pulled up to a raft, got off the boat out over the side on a net, same as with the Queen Elizabeth, and to a landing barge and took you into shore. But it was completely destroyed. It was bombed by both sides, I'm sure. And from there we marched up a hill, and when we got up to the top of the hill, it was like going from a black and white movie to a color movie. Everything was alive. Everything there was alive. People out in the street, going about their daily business. It was really something to see. There was this side of the hill is black, on this side of the hill it's technicolor. And anyway, we marched down, and that's how I got there.
You remember your serial number by any chance?
3141 2792.
So now you landed in Le Havre. Do you recall the date by any chance? Or the month?
Not really.
Do you remember what month it was? Was it winter?
It was winter. Yeah. It was winter.
Were you given your cold weather clothing before you left for Le Havre?
Oh, yes.
Were you issued?
Yes. We were issued cold weather.
So if I were to ask you, you were properly dressed for winter weather?
We were properly dressed, yes.
Okay. And as an infantryman, what were your duties? What was your title?
Well, in the infantry, they have different branches of infantry. I took my training with anti-tank. We had a 57 millimeter anti-tank gun. The projectile weighed 6.5 pounds. It bounced off of everything except a truck, maybe a track, possibly anything else. But that's what I started out in, as that. But it wasn't very long because they cut it out and they come up with the TDs, 90 millimeter mounted on a track, a self-propelled track that could run around in a light, they could do everything. That's what really knocked out the tanks. And then I was put in a line company, and I became a bazooka man, because I had anti-tank training, I suppose. But it's funny, I got a letter from my brother in Europe, and he was writing, I'm glad you're in anti-tank, that's good. He says, stay out of a line company. While I'm reading this letter, I'm in a line company. And we, anyway, let's see, I lost track here. But they had to do away with that gun. It was no good. It was a big rifle. It looked like the projectile looked just like the 30 caliber multiplied big, but it just bounced off the tanks. Well, that's that anyway.
So you were a bazooka man, but you're saying that they did away with that?
No, I wasn't a bazooka man then. I was in a group with a gun, and we had a gun. In fact, when we were in Belgium, you could walk out towards your gun. You knew it was there. You couldn't see it. So foggy, you walk out, you bump into the gun, you know you're there. That's actually true. I think somebody else said something like that. It's true. You just couldn't see your hand in front of your face. You walked till you bumped into the gun.
So after you ended up in Le Havre, you ended up, where was your next base of operations? and when you first saw action?
Well, we started out in Belgium. We went across, when we pushed out, we went across Belgium and Luxembourg. We went through Luxembourg. And then we went just south of Bastogne. And we up over the Ardennes Mountains, paddled across the Moselle and the Rhine River. Then we got out to flat and we went all the way up to Czechoslovakia.
Basically, that was your. At one point, you came across the 90th Division during your service.
Well, they were alongside of us many times, and we came across a group. Well, it had to be almost. It had to be a company. It had to be a company, and they were caught by tree burst. They were dug in, and they were all dead.
Tell me what a tree burst is for those that don't know.
A tree burst is something when they shoot artillery at you, it hits a tree, a branch as it's coming down, explodes, and all of the shrapnel comes down onto the ground. So if you're in a hole, you don't have a heavy cover on it, you're going to get killed anyway because it comes right down on top of you.
Do you remember how many men were killed in that particular area?
I really
if you were to
don't
take a
have
guess?
anything, but there had to be 50, 60 or more you could see. And then we went on beyond that. And I thought to myself at the time, how many people in this country, in the United States, were going to be affected by that scene? Just seeing these people. I mean, we walked around a little bit, looked in the holes, they were all dead. So anyway, they got us out of there. They didn't want us seeing that too much. We moved out of that. And it always stayed with me. And just to continue the story on to beyond the whole thing, we always thought everybody was killed, but when my wife was working on the computer, she told that story, and someone came back and said that not all were killed, one survived. And he's living in Belgium, he stayed in Belgium, he married a Belgian girl, and he's living there. So anyway, we found that out. We went over and got talking about and asking questions about him doing things. And I told a story. And gee, when I finished, one of our good friends, Dominique, he's still in the military in Belgium. He says, I know that. He says, he's my best friend. And it was very shocking to think the whole circle went all the way around and back to that, and he's the one that lived, and he's Dominique's best friend. How you going to run into something like that? It was really something to me. I mean, I'm glad the guy lived.
What was your rank in the military at that time when you were in Belgium?
GFC, private first class. Everybody was.
After hearing about this individual that survived, did you ever have the opportunity to meet up with him?
No, we didn't. And we'll probably go back this year. I'm going to try and meet him because of what I saw in the whole thing. But it was really a shock to see that. We go. Go ahead, you ask me.
When I was a young man, I carried...
Bob, I'd like to ask you something. We spoke earlier when you came to England and you came across on the Queen Elizabeth. I believe the port that you came into, was that Glasgow?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
And do you understand why that boat had to go to Scotland rather than to England?
It was probably because of that.
Okay. And they felt that was the safest port.
Yeah.
Tell me something. Where did you do your basic training?
Camp Landing, Florida.
Okay. And how long were you there?
About 18 months.
Okay. And you trained as an infantryman. And did you get any...
Anti-tank in the infantry.
Oh, you were anti-tank in the infantry. And after your training got done and you were ready to ship out on the Queen Elizabeth, did you ship out of New York, do you recall?
Yes, we were set up to Camp Shanks in New York. And after we got a 7-day delay en route, and then we reported back to Camp Shanks. And from there, you got your weapon, you got different things, and like that. And they took us down to the Jersey Shore. We got on a ferry, went across the river, got off onto a dock, onto the boat, Queen Elizabeth. And we loaded all night. It might have been loading all afternoon for all I know, but it was loaded all night. And the next day, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we left. Waving to everybody that's standing on the shore, any place. As the boat left, everybody's on the deck waving. And the funny thing about leaving New York, you don't really feel like you're going anyplace until you go by the Statue of Liberty. You know, it's funny, you look at that and you see it fading in behind you, and you realize you're on your way. At least I did, that's the way it felt to me. And it was kind of a cloudy, dreary day anyway. Everybody's out on the deck. But it was a very good voyage if you didn't get seasick.
I'd like to ask you something. You said everybody was out waving to you, and we mentioned before that loose lips sink ships.
Right.
And here it is, you have hundreds or thousands of people waving goodbye.
Right.
Were any of your family members there to
No.
see you off? No.
There's no way you could tell them, really.
They kept it secret till the
We
day
didn't
you
know-
were shipping.
We didn't know where we were going.
But what about the exact day of demarcation?
Well, you're up in Camp Shanks, and your name's called out, and you get on a truck. In fact, I think we were down on a train. You got on a train, and they took you down to the Jersey Shore, and you got on. And I didn't even know it was the Queen Elizabeth till long after we were on it. You know.
So you actually had no idea once you left Camp Shank that in a day or 2 days or 48 hours, you'll be on a ship heading to England.
It was, yeah.
That information was kept
Well,
away
no,
from the...
Yeah, you don't need to know.
It was on a need-to-know basis.
Yeah.
Bob, I understand, and I've mentioned it, and you've mentioned it before. After you left New York, heading towards England, you were on the Queen Elizabeth. Tell me where on that ship all the men stayed, where they were bunked, and especially where were you bunked on that ship?
Okay, I was bunked as far forward as you could go, and as far down as you could go. There was only the chain lock on front. And that boat going across would come up longer than I could inhale, and it would go down longer than I could exhale. It would go up out of the water, and then it would start coming down, you'd hear nothing, and then all of a sudden you hear it hit the water, and it would keep going down. You'd think to yourself, wait, this thing's going down to the bottom. It would go down, it would go down. And then, fine. And it zigzagged each way. It changed course every 5 minutes.
Well, tell me,
making it rock and roll.
Why was it zigzagging?
Well, it went without escort, and it could outrun a submarine, and it takes a submarine so many minutes to set up their sights. It would change its direction before that time was up, a couple of minutes earlier. So it was very hard for them to line up their sights, and it's past them before they have time to do it twice. That's what we were told anyway. And it did zigzag. You could look out the back and see the zigzag that it was doing. And it went north and south. We'd be hot one night, cold the next night, because it was also zigzagging that way, being unescorted. You couldn't go straight across. Well, anyway, we got there. We went up to Glasgow, and there we disembarked onto a raft. They tied up to a raft, and we got disembarked onto a raft that got on a landing barge that took us into shore. And from there we got on a train and rode overnight down to Southampton. This was a big operation. There's 18,000 guys, from my understanding, on that boat. And easily it could have been, because you can go up. My bunk was down, but you can go to other places They were 15 bunks high. You gotta climb up like a ladder to get to your bunk up in the top. And Lordy knows what would happen if you fell out. You wouldn't have to worry about the water anymore, that's for sure. It was absolutely amazing what they did. They carried a lot of people and it fed a lot of people. Food wasn't great, but it was adequate.
Well, tell me something. We talked about the bunks. You guys didn't have your own room where you were bunked together with a bunch of guys, or it was all open space?
We were in spaces all together, just guys. Wherever they could build a bunk, they built it. But these were high. The thing is, you got to climb up the bunks like ladders to get up to the top one. Oh, man, that's high.
Well, tell me something else. How much space was between each bunk? Did you want to be on the bottom, in between, or you wanted to be the top bunk?
I'd rather be on the bottom, but what they usually do, about that far, I guess. 30 inches, maybe a little less, 28. But you climbed up and you slid into that place, and that's where you slept. But don't roll out.
Well, let me ask you something. Did there come a time where you received orders that you had to sleep with your life vest on?
No, we never had that. I don't believe, no, we had that. It was always with you, though. You always had it with you.
Were you issued a life vest?
Yes.
Okay, so that was part of your gear, as would have been a gas mask.
I don't think we had gas masks. We had life rafts. I mean, we had life preservers.
Okay, so that was given to
Vests,
you.
life vests. But it was kind of a rocky ride, turning all the time. But we got there safely. That was the main thing.
Okay, so did you have to let loose sometimes from all the rocking?
Oh man, you had to run. If you even got a strong stomach and nothing bothers you, you can't last it out.
Tell me about the food the British gave you while you were on that Queen Elizabeth.
Well,
I hear that's a luxury liner.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, yeah, we're eating a nice big ballroom, dining room, but it's all in what you call it. How can you ruin a hot dog? The British figured that out. Basically, we had that kind of chow all the way across. I don't know what happened. We come back on the SS United States. We had steaks. I don't know what they were doing with the food, but anyway, that's.
When you say they, you're talking about the British.
Yeah.
So you felt that the British were holding back?
I always kind of thought they were holding out a little to sell on the black market, but that probably I shouldn't probably say that, but.
Now,
it's just strange.
I want to ask you about something that I understood from some of the guys that came across on the Queen Mary. I know it wasn't the Queen Elizabeth, and it wasn't, according to what you're telling me, as large as the Queen Elizabeth. But they told me they couldn't even get a cup of coffee on the Queen Mary. All they got was tea. Was that the case with you on the Queen Elizabeth? Do you remember?
Oh no, we had coffee. But you had to drink it right away, because it turned green if it sat in your canteen cup, too long. And British, I don't think were ever really great for food anyway. But and the boat was a little worse.
Bob, tell me, when you arrived in Le Havre, what did you see? What did the port of Le Havre look like?
It was completely burned up. It was black. Everything was black. It was all torn apart. It was bombed by both sides. I felt. We bombed it. They bombed it when we had it, and back and forth, because it was completely destroyed. Anyway, we got off onto the shore. We marched up, and they just took it directly up a hill. It was up a hill, and you got to the top of the hill, and when you looked out there, it was like going from a black and white movie to a color movie. And it was just beautiful. People were living there, they were going about their business and everything, and they're looking at you as you march by, It was a whole different thing, black to beauty. And we went downhill, then up a little hill, and into the center of the town, where they had it all set up to feed us. They fed us. I put my rifle down, as everybody did. And then after you eat, okay, call out your name, you're going to get on a truck. They call out your name and you get on a truck. Well, I did. And I didn't have my rifle when I got on a truck. So the guy said, okay, go over and see that guy. I went back to what's it there? He said, go over and see that supply sergeant over there. I went over, he gave me a rifle. It was an older rifle, older M1. I took that fine, got in a truck and we left. We rode for the better part of that day and into the night a little bit. And we come to a farmhouse, everybody got out of the truck. There was a few trucks. Everybody got out, we went into this farmhouse, we slept on the floor. And that was fine and dandy, you know, it was dry and it was warmer. I had to go to a train. Well, when you're coming up, you get all these stories about the Germans coming through at night and cutting everybody's throat and stabbing everybody and killing everybody. You're scared stiff. I mean, absolutely. I tell you this because there's something else later on. I was absolutely scared stiff from what I heard. Now, I had to go out. I had to go. I go down, the guy standing at the guard at the door. I told him I'm going out, okay. I had a password. I go out, it was a moonlit night, and the wind was blowing. And it was snow, there was snow on the ground all around. And I go do my business, okay, I'm coming back. And I got my rifle. In fact, I think my fingerprints are still in that rifle someplace. Because I wouldn't have gone out if I didn't have that rifle. I had a round in the chamber and a safety off. If you stuck your head out and said boo, you wouldn't have got the last O out. So anyway, I get in, I'm fine. I go up and I sleep. And finally, the next day, we ride a little longer. And you get off, you go to your outfit. You know, you're dropped off where you're going to be. And anyway, I was there for a little while. Some of the guys, myself, was going to take some target practice. They're getting up, shooting at insulators and stuff. And they bang, bang, they're doing fine. I take a thing, click. They take another, click. Darn rifle didn't have any firing pin in it. I would have never left that house. I didn't have that trusty old rifle. Oh, see, I laughed about that because I just, you know, you have no idea how afraid I was, how scared I was. And anyway, I got a new rifle. But I got a carbine. I was a bazooka man. Well, that's later on. But anyway, it just always stuck in my mind about no firing pin. Now I tell that story that way because just as the war was ending, this is the tail end of a long time in between. But the war was over, and as far as we were concerned, the Germans weren't going to come and attack us, or we weren't going to attack the Germans. But they were over. They were out in the fields out there someplace. We couldn't see them, and they couldn't see us. But you had to pull guard. You had to stay in your hole and stay awake. And guys were sleeping because these guys aren't going to bother us. So anyway, if you got caught, they're going to give you KP when you're not there. So anyway, they had a lieutenant and a platoon sergeant coming around checking. They caught you sleeping, you're going to get it. And they had two green guys, absolutely two green guys in the same hole, just like I was when I was coming up. And they had loaded rifles, and the sergeant and the lieutenant coming up, and they said, halt! Bang, 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 and killed them both. 3 days before the war actually ended. It was impossible. I mean, you think about it. You go through everything all the way up, and you get killed by your own people, but it wasn't their fault. It was the fault of the guy that put two green guys in the same hole. And it wasn't altogether his fault, it was the fault of those rear echelons guys giving wild stories that were exaggerated, and you had you more scared than you ever would be, and you ever should be, and they killed them. Now they're living with that now. But they can't do anything to them, but it was a terrible thing.
Now, you're heading towards becoming the replacements over at the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah, that was my outfit. And I was anti-tank in the beginning.
When you arrived there, did you see action immediately?
Yeah, well, we were dug in, and the Germans would come up and they were digging in the woods across the field from where we were. They were digging in, and you could see them. It was at night, but you could see them. You could see them visually once in a while. You could see them, but they're there. They're digging. You could hear them, and then they wouldn't be there in the daytime, and only at night. In fact, there's a little story with that. I'm in a hole with a guy. This is that scared kid up there, and I'm down in that hole, and the guy was sleeping, and I was awake. I was that guy. And we're in this hole, it's a pretty deep hole. And I hear this leaves rustling. Somebody walking through leaves. Uh-oh, they're coming, those Germans are coming. Take the safety off, got around to the chamber, and I'm waiting there, boy. And I'm telling you, I was scared stiff. Believe me, I was scared. And it keeps getting closer and closer and closer. The leaves are rustling more. And all of a sudden, a head appears. It says, "Meow." It was a cat. But I didn't pull the trigger, but I could have. But it's just one of those things when you're really scared and you don't have to be scared. But you can cut that off.
I'm going to take you to a time where one of your friends, Frederick B. Sprinzen, do you recall that name?
Yep.
Okay.
He's a year ahead of me in high school.
Okay. I'm going to show you a photograph, and then you can show it to the camera. Okay?
That's pretty great.
That's fine. Now, he's buried where? Do you know exactly where he's buried?
In Luxembourg.
He's buried in Luxembourg. Tell me the story about you and Freddie.
Well, I didn't even know Freddie was in my outfit until the day it happened. But
Did you know Freddie back home?
I knew him back home. He was ahead of me in high school. He was a magician. When we had school affairs, he would do his magic act and stuff. He was a nice guy. And he, as I say, he got out a year ahead of me, and he went in. But he was coming up a road. We were stopped by the Rhine, and there was the main road running down. It was like a super highway, and there was a little spur running off it down to the river. And he was coming up from that spur down by the river. And it was across the river, up on a hill, up on a mountain, there was a sniper shooting at us. And he shot at Freddie, and he missed him. He hit just about over his head, about 18 inches above his head, or between that and a foot. Freddie ducked back behind the building, and he went over, and he went up on the street. I was sitting in front of the house, that I was on that road. I was sitting in front of the house, away so the sniper couldn't see me. And Freddie started walking down the other way. He walked by about 3, maybe 4 houses, and he came to an empty lot. And he forgot, and he walked out past the lot, and when he got in the middle of it, the guy got him, shot him. He went through the sides. You get shot through the side, as most guys do in the Army know. That's a little more fatal than if you're taken through the front, most of the time.
And the shot went from one side of his body to the other side?
Yeah, because he was walking down the river and it went through. And he was laying in the middle of the road. A little Filipino medic came running up, ran out to him, laid down with him. And this sniper, he kept shooting. He wasn't trying to hit him. He wasn't trying to kill the medic, but he fired a complete circle right around him. And he was a good shot. He knew what he was doing. But you couldn't go out, no one could go out and grab Freddie or anything. But when he died, the medic got up and ran back. And then the guy stopped shooting, and then they ran out and grabbed Freddie and brought him in. But he was dead. That's when the medic left, he was dead. And it was just too bad. He just made one little mistake.
Did your unit send anyone else? Did your unit send out a unit to try to locate this sniper, where he might be?
No, you couldn't. You had to get across the river, and that was still enemy territory. You could never find him.
How long were you in that particular area?
Approximately a week.
You were there a week.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something. You were sitting down in front of one of the buildings that you were discussing before,
Well,
and you noticed something.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's too bad. It was the day after. It was the day after Freddie got killed. I was sitting there and I noticed that this little spur that ran down to the river ended at the super highway. It was a pretty good sized highway, and the town was on it. And I happened to notice a fella came down one way, and the shutter on that house, it was a big shutter, it was about 6 foot by 4 foot or around in that anyway. And the woman up there opened the shutter on that side. I saw her. She opened the shutter on that side. This guy stopped, and then he had to run across where that road ran down to the river because it was open. And he ran, the guy fired and missed him because he just couldn't catch up to him in time. And I'm sitting there, and pretty soon the guy comes up the other way. And I noticed, she closed the shutter after that. Then she opened the shutter on that side. That guy stopped by the house there, took a breath, and he ran across, same thing, fired, missed him. Then she closed the shutter again. I realized she was warning this guy up on the hill, telling him that there was a guy coming, because how could he be ready all the time? You can't just sit there that far away looking down the barrel of a gun. And so anyway, I picked up the first weapon I grabbed, I think it was an M1. I emptied that on that apartment. I hit one of the hinges on one of the shutters that fell down and swinging, and there was another gun there. My gun is a Thompson submachine gun. I emptied that on it, and then there was a German gun laying there. I emptied that on it. And anyway, everybody's hollering, "Thomas, what the heck you doing? What are you doing?" Then I told what happened. They took her away. I didn't hit her too bad. But they took her away. You know, this guy never hit anybody, never fired anybody after that. Because you just can't sit there waiting for someone to come by and fire.
So that was
this guy hit a guy riding a bicycle up the river a little ways. I mean, he was a good shot. Go ahead.
So this particular sniper, after you eliminated what you found out to be the cause and the reason why some of your soldiers were getting hit, this woman was taken away by the American soldiers. There was no further incident of anyone being shot at
He
by a
wasn't even
sniper.
firing. He didn't even fire anymore because he wouldn't know when someone's coming. And you couldn't stand 600 yards away just looking down the barrel of a gun waiting for someone to come by. And I just wish I'd noticed it before Freddie got killed. I would have been alive today. Maybe.
I want to ask you one thing about Freddie and his family. After the war, did you go to see his family?
Yeah, after the war I went down and saw what I thought was his family, but it turned out it was his grandparents. They were an older couple. And I told him what happened, that he was out, he was going back to warn his men. And it was a very sad thing anyway, I told him, and actually we were crying. But I thought it was his parents, because he went to high school with me, and I thought that was it, but it wasn't. He was from New York.
Do you remember what town he was from?
I think it just says New York on here, but I can't quite make it out on here. But it was upstate New York. And I think he was living with his grandparents and going to school down here. And I don't know why, but it's just too bad.
There was a time, very recently, when you received one of the medals that you're wearing now. It's the Medal of Honor, awarded to you for your actions in Luxembourg.
Yes.
I'd like to show you that, and if you can show it to everyone.
Yes.
Tell me what that was for. Why did you get that Medal of Honor, that Distinguished Service Medal?
Well, it says here for recognition of his effortless, selfless services and brave, you know, what we did. We actually freed these people from the Germans. They were under German regime for about 5 years, and we really liberated them, and they were very grateful, and that's why they gave me this one, I think. Luxembourg. That's this medal right here. This one here.
Let me zoom in on that. Can you hold it? There it is. Okay, that's the medal. And right alongside that medal is a very prestigious medal that you received from the French government.
Yes, that's the French Medal of Honor.
And that's the French Legion.
Legion of Medal of Honor.
Beautiful, beautiful.
They're very nice.
Did you, are you also in receipt of any accommodation such as a Purple Heart or...
No, I don't have a Purple Heart, but I got everybody in my squad a Purple Heart. Another story. We were in a factory, taking a factory. It was all low buildings, and in back of it there was a hill going up, pretty high hill. Everybody's shooting up. I don't have a carpet, so I'm shooting between a pipe that ran along the roof of this building, boarded up. You see it in a lot of factory buildings. The pipe ran up there, was insulated. I'm shooting between that and the building, trying to bounce some bullets up there. Anyway, I hit the pipe. A little fluid ran out of it, down onto the roof, and down. There was no gutters, just off that, and we were standing down there. All of a sudden, the guy said, "Hey, what's that? What's that? It burns." Everybody stepped back away from the building. So it turns out it was acid in the line. And it's burning them. I got a few burns. And anyway, splattered on you a little bit. A colonel was a little further down the factory. He got wounded, and they were bringing him back on a weasel. That's a track machine, like a Jeep in a way. They were bringing him back on a weasel. Well, everybody in my squad jumped on that weasel, took a ride to the medics to get something put on those little burns they got. Every one of them got a Purple Heart. If I went, I would have gotten one. But it's funny. They were mad at Thomas. He hit that damn pipe and look at us. The next day, their jackets were all eaten. Mine was. Everyone was. And anyway, they were mad at me. But when they got the Purple Heart, they were all happy with me. It meant more points for getting out too. But that's just one of those little incidents that happened. Don't stand too close to me, I guess.
Bob, I'd like to ask you about the Rhine crossing. This was later on in 1945?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about what happened when you crossed the Rhine, and exactly how did you cross the Rhine?
Okay, the first time we tried it at night, it was a very dark night. And we had our boats, like 6 guys in a boat, I believe, or we walked on each side carrying the boat down to the river. We got about halfway down, and some guy started a generator up. It sounded like it might have been a generator. And
was this one of your men?
Somebody in the rear started this thing up. And when that thing started, all hell broke loose. They figured we were coming. They were waiting for us anyway. They were coming. And everything, man, they threw everything they had at us. 20 millimeters, heavy machine guns, I don't care what you name it, they were shooting at us. And they lit up the whole area. It was a dark night and you could see everything. Well, we just dropped our boats and ran for cover. That's when that started. That's all you could do. I got behind a nice tree that fell towards the river. And I was behind the roots, and I had a good spot. And I had a very good spot. And I'm there, and anyway, all of a sudden I hear, Thomas, I'm hit, I can't see, I'm blind, help me. That was my BAR man. We always dug in together. And okay, it's Coppola, Frank Coppola. Nice guy. And anyway, I crawled out to him. And just as I got to him, he was starting to get up. Well, you could see the tracers from the low-level firing. It was about 30 inches off the ground. If he'd stood up, he's dead. So I laid on top of him. He was starting to get up. I laid on top of him and pushed him down, told him to stay down, and we stayed there. And the 20 millimeters were going off all around us. They're a puff, big pink puff. And I couldn't see anything. I looked at him and I never got hit with anything. I don't think I didn't know anybody else that did, unless it was Coppola. He could have gotten hit by a shrapnel from it. And anyway, he was blind, he couldn't see. So I went out there and we waited there until eventually they stopped. They always stop shooting. They do it for so long and then they'll stop. About a half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, they stop. Well, then we picked up, we went back over the other side of the railroad tracks that were back of us that we just had come across. And he was hit. He had a big cut across his forehead and he had blood in his eyes and he was blind. He couldn't see. And if he stood up, he'd been dead. So, anyway, the medics took him away and he came back the next day, had a bandage on his head. He was all right. And that night was a lost night. I mean, we couldn't do anything. I don't even know if anybody even got hit. But there was an awful lot of firing. But it's just one of those things. You don't know. You go back, and next thing you know, you're reorganizing someplace and you're doing it again. The next morning, we started during the daylight. We're still in the first wave. And we paddled across that river, and they were shooting at us all the way. They never hit our boat. I don't know how it is. It's luck. It's luck and good guardian angel or whatever. They never even hit our boat, but they hit all the way around it, all the way across. And we got across, we jumped out of the boat, we hit the deck, and then they sprayed down there, but they just knocked dirt in the face, that's all. And when I looked over my shoulder a little later, well, they'd given us 3 artillery rounds of smoke. This was supposed to give us cover to get across. Well, as it is in rivers, the wind blows up and the wind blows down rivers. Well, it was blowing up the river, and that's why we got exposed all the way across. But we were fortunate, we did get hit. And I looked over my shoulder anyway, and the wind was smoke was starting to come back. There was a guy with an oar out of the back of the boat trying to get steered over into the smoke. And that's all you could see out there. Now the smoke is coming back. Anyway, we stayed there a while, and after a while we all got there. Yeah. After a while we all got there, and it was successful. I don't even know how much they got hit or what, but how they missed our boat from where they were shooting at us, I can't believe it. But anyway.
Tell me, eventually you crossed the Rhine, is that correct?
Yeah, right.
Now, when did you first start seeing the German troops, after you crossed the Rhine? Was there any close-up combat that you were engaged in?
The minute we got there, we were being shot at by them. We were shooting back at them, but they surrendered eventually. They backed up. They backtracked. Yeah. We kept moving forward.
Were they regular Wehrmacht?
Yeah, Wehrmacht. Yeah.
Wehrmacht. Okay. At any time during the war, did you come across any of the SS troops?
Oh yeah. I tell you a story about that. But we had to take a town. We had to take the town there. So we did take the town and stuff. And strange, the Germans there was a cliff right in back of this town. And it was all plexiglass or glass, I don't know which it was, around it. And they could walk up and down. You could walk up and down the edge of the cliff. It was built right into the side of the cliff. And you could see them walking up there. But they were a little out of range of it. And they had good fortifications, but they just backed up, and finally we took the whole town. And I don't even know whatever happened up there. When you're in the infantry, you move. You move into one area and then you move out to another. You don't know what happens behind you after that. But it was scary. And a lot of guys I'm sure, got wounded and maybe killed. They could have given us more smoke, but they didn't. They must be gold shells.
Tell me about coming across the SS, when that happened.
Okay, well, that was back in the Moselle. We crossed the Moselle River, and they had a machine gun post on a road that ran up by the river, another super highway. And they had us pinned against a wall with all vineyards above that. And we couldn't move because the machine gun shooting right down, but it was just a little turn in the road. And we were hiding behind that. We were behind that, and they couldn't get to us. My squad got the detail going up and around, getting rid of that machine gun nest. So we climbed up the wall, we got up there, we got up to the vineyards, and up at the top of the hill there was a big orchard. And the grass had grown up quite high, about 3 feet high. And we're coming through the orchard, and all of a sudden you could see all the grass falling down. Then suddenly you hear the shooting. There's a guy inside of in a shack, underneath an apple tree, shooting at us. He didn't hit anybody, about ankle high. He didn't hit anybody. Everybody hit the ground, we got down, everybody's firing. He's still firing back. So I started shooting bazooka rounds to try and hit the shack. Well, I knocked about 8 branches off that tree, big limbs. But I couldn't get one to go down through and hit the shack. But I must have scared the guy a little bit. It makes a lot of noise. And anyway, finally they did get him in the arm in about 3 places. I think it was a BAR, I think it was Capola. And anyway, he surrendered, he was SS. But he had on GI pants. Yeah, don't get caught in the enemy's uniform. They took it off. They cut it off. And those iron knives they're using are pointy on both sides and sharp on both sides. They cut the guy up quite a bit, getting the pants off him. He's not going to wear any more GI pants anyway. But he was SS. That's why he wouldn't surrender. But they took him back anyway, medics. He was bleeding. And anyway, we took the town. Then we went in and we took the town. I don't know if he was a machine gun nest or not, but I never got down to see what was down, really shooting down the road. It all changed when we started firing up on the top of the hill. I think they moved out. So it's just, I don't know.
I want to ask you about the Normandy massacre. During your time while you were still in service, did you hear about the Normandy massacre while you were in Belgium?
No.
Okay. What about after the war? Is that the first time you heard about it? So during that time, you saw nothing in any of the newsreels or newspapers, military newspapers, while you were still active?
I don't remember reading anything about it, no. I read the Stars and Stripes all the time. And as a matter of fact, I read in there about a guy that carried around in his bazooka. And the bazooka folded in half. And the round stuck out about 2 inches when you broke it open, when it was open. And right after that, I was sliding down a hill. It was right after we crossed the Rhine. I was sliding down a hill, and I got the thing that's hitting in the dirt, And I thought to myself, I looked at it, and here's this round sticking out, banging in the dirt. It's a rock. I don't know if it'll go off. I really don't know. The wire wasn't hooked up, but the round's in. And I never carried one in after that.
Now, why did there have to be a wire hooked up to a bazooka round?
That's what sets the charge off. There's a little battery that sets off the charge for the round. And it fires, and you can't be back of it.
What kind of clearance do you have to have behind the bazooka when firing it?
I don't know, 15, 20 feet.
Anybody standing within 5 feet of that district would get wounded?
Yes, would get burned. Just stay clear of the back of the bazooka. But I had a bazooka, assistant bazooka man who carried 3 rounds of ammunition in that one. Well, we fired those all the time.
Did you ever encounter a tank that you had to fire?
No, I never did. We always wanted to get one, see if we could knock a track off. But chances are, if I did, I wouldn't be here. Because you knock a track off, now you got a pillbox. And it just swings around and blows you out. Well, it's not that way, really. You can escape. But
Do you recall at any time when you were in combat seeing an enemy soldier in front of your sights on your rifle where you shot at them?
oh yeah, I shot at him. But everybody's shooting at him. You know, that's the thing. They say, did you kill anybody? I don't know. I really don't know, because you got a squad here. You got a whole squad, and when they're shooting, everybody's shooting basically in the same direction. And whether you say I killed him or not, I don't know. At the distance that I was hitting things 6 or 7 in a row. You know, take a target practice and stuff. And I'm sure I could have hit people, but I couldn't say I did. Because it's just not that kind of fighting.
Tell me about your friend Tommy.
Well, Tommy and I, we met going up for our physicals. And we went up there, we passed, and we came back. And he lived down in Stamford, and I lived in Bridgeport. And he got on a train in Stamford and passed through Bridgeport, going to New Haven to get his physical. And we met them, and then we came back, I got off. But then we were called up to Fort Devens. Tommy came up, I got on a train, we rode up to Fort Devens together. And his name being Troy and my name being Thomas, quite often we were together. The names, you know, alphabetically, were close enough. And we spent a lot of time together. We were the same barracks down in Camp Landing, and we took anti-tank training. And
Where was Camp Landing?
Florida, just outside of Jacksonville. In fact, it's still there.
They use it as an active training base?
It's a museum now.
That's music.
Yeah. And it was, well, we went over, we got on a boat together, we did everything together. Till we got over there, he went into the 84th and I went into the 87th. We were in trucks and we split, and he went one way a little bit and I went the other way.
Did you ever run into him again after that?
And only after the war.
Only after the war.
Yeah. Well, you get in divisions, but you know, you never see anybody again. Not like my mother. Somebody said her son was in the 3rd Army, and she'd say, maybe he knows my son, Bobby. Army's a big thing. And actually, it could have been possible. But another little story. Buckley and I was the assistant bazooka man. We had to take some prisoners back.
What was his name again?
Buckley.
Buckley?
Yeah. And he was from Virginia. And anyway, we took the prisoners back, and we're coming back up. Oh, wait a minute. And we were coming through a factory. We found one of these electric carts that they use in factories. We rode that down the road for quite a while. And then we had touched that. We were walking, and we looked up at a hill, and there was a whole bunch of guys on this hill. Man, there was a mob of them. I mean, there was like 50 of them. It's an awful lot of guys. And holy mackerel, there was only 2 of us. We're in between. So they're coming down, they got white flags. They want to surrender. All right, come on down, come on down. You're a little leery because there's so many of them. I'll come down to all old guys, my age, maybe a little younger, maybe even older. They were all old guys. They were hungry, I think. They wanted to surrender. They weren't in the army. They just wanted to get taken someplace. So, okay, we come along. We line them up in the road, and we march down the road with them. And they're going, you know, I can't understand what they're saying.
So to this day, you don't know if they were German...
No, they weren't German soldiers. They're too old. But they wanted to be captured. So we take them back to the town, the next town up where our outfit was. And we take them in, turn them in. They put them in a cellar in a building, in a big building, like a school building. And it had windows in the cellar. They put them down in there. They put me in the garden. Okay, got all these old guys, and they're just sitting around. And I fall asleep. I got my rifle laying there. I fall asleep. Next morning they're shaking me. I wake up, I grab my rifle, I jump up, I'm all shook up, and they say, Essen, they want to eat. And I believe is why they want to get captured. So okay, I go holler to the guy outside the place. Hey, these guys want to eat in here. Can we get them some breakfast? He says, yeah, okay. They brought him in breakfast and stuff. And, oh, they were happier than heck. That's what they wanted. They wanted to eat. They had to wait all night to get it. And it was funny. But there's a lot of little funny things that happen to you. That's, I mean, they wouldn't kill me, but they could cut my throat and nobody ever missed me. But it just, they just wanted to get captured and be out of the war. Be someplace on the winning side, I guess.
I want to ask you a question. Recently, you went back to Normandy. You were there for the 70th anniversary. That was your first time back since the war ended?
Yes, we went for a month and 2 days.
And you went together with your lovely wife, Anne?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me something. What did that trip mean to you, and what was so important? And what was the reason why you chose to go back?
Well, for one reason, they invited me.
And who invited you?
There's a group that brings over veterans, and they invited me over. They paid my airfare, and my wife came with me naturally. But it was just something that they do because they're running out of people a little bit, and it was the greatest thing in the world. It was invigorating. It was tremendous because these people had been 5 years under a German rule, and no one else would have been able to chase the Germans out. The British couldn't do it, I'm sure, and we did it. The British were fighting there, I know, but they couldn't have done it alone. And they appreciate it. They appreciate the fact that they're not speaking German today. And they were very friendly and very, well, you sit down for a minute, it's like being a rock star for a day, every day. Taking your picture, want your autograph, want this, want that. They were very nice, very nice.
Are we talking about the Belgians or the French?
Belgium and French,
What would you?
No matter where you went, it was the same thing.
What would you say is the difference that you found between the two, in the way you were?
Actually, I found no difference. Basically, they're all the same. I mean, they were just thankful and celebrating the 70th anniversary.
Do you feel the same way about Americans today, after being in Europe and being accepted and receiving all the gratitude for risking your life and as well as other soldiers risking their life? Do you think American veterans here in the States are being treated equally?
Oh yeah, I think so. I personally think so, yes. When I came back to this country, I came back on the SS United States. It was the biggest day for men coming back from overseas in New York Harbor. They had all of the fireboats out, squirting water up in the air, colored water and stuff. They had all kinds of boats with bands on them playing, and it was very festive to me. It was great. And we came in, and everybody's naturally hanging over the railings, waving to everybody. It was a great day coming back. That's what I really remember about that part of it. And,
were you coming home to a sweetheart? Did you have somebody here waiting for you? Did you have a girlfriend?
Yeah, I had a girlfriend. I guess everybody had a girlfriend. But, it didn't work out. I got home. She was going to college. And that was it, you know. She had a boyfriend in college. I had a girlfriend every place I went. So, I mean, basically, every town I was in, I had a girlfriend, and even overseas. it was just, we were young. And anyway, I finally did meet my wife, and we went to college together down at the UB, University of Bridgeport, and we married, and it was great. Let's see, what else could I say?
Bob, I noticed that you're holding a magazine on your lap, and the name of the magazine is Venue. Okay, could you elaborate on that and why you brought it out to show us?
Yeah, definitely. This is a magazine that my daughter owns and publishes, and it's got a story in it about she came over while we were there. She surprised me, and my wife, by being there. And as she says in the story that she has in this magazine, that she wasn't going to miss a once-in-a-lifetime thing with her father being over there. So she came over and surprised us. She told us she was going to Miami on business. And she was there and surprised us, and it was wonderful, really was. And she printed this article in a magazine about me.
And what does it talk about?
What's that?
What does it talk about, the article itself?
It talks about me going into the service and I don't know, I've read it many times. And the people I met, and she says here, a hero tribute to 70 years in the making. And that's the way she feels about her dad anyway. And
does she have any sisters or brothers?
no, she's the only child. And we used to go fishing together and everything. And she just, as she says in this article, she wasn't going to miss this thing and this time. So she flew over. And we were together. There's pictures in here of her. It's Venue magazine. And I read it about 3 times, and now you ask me a question and blah, blah, blah.
Well, tell me something about the magazine. Knowing what the little I do know about the different publications, I'm looking at it as though it's a very high-end, high-fashion.
That's what it is.
And a magazine that basically deals with high-end products, quality products.
Yes, that's absolutely what it is. Here's the cover of it.
It's beautiful. It's beautifully done.
It's a very nice magazine.
And how often is it printed?
Every 2 months.
Every 2 months it comes out. Okay, and the issue that you're in specifically, in case they want to contact the magazine.
In fact, she's kind of changing a bit. This is the fall issue.
The fall issue?
That's in 2 months, yeah. The next one will be the winter issue anyway, yeah. Every couple of months. And sometimes 3. But she writes in here very, very well about her father. And now, what was that question?
The question is the type of products that are described in there. It seems like it also describes different charitable events.
Yes, it's charitable events. It's all high-end stuff.
Right. It's a high society magazine.
Definitely is.
And it goes after a particular clientele.
Yes, and she has, yes, that's true.
Her offices are located in?
They're in Fairfield.
In Fairfield, Connecticut.
Yes.
All right.
And,
so what does the proud father want to say about his daughter, and what's her first name?
Her name is Tracy Allison Thomas. Her first and Tracey.
And if you're sending Tracy a message, what would you tell her?
I love her. But I tell her she did a great job on this magazine. But she was wonderful. She wanted to be there when I, not knowing what was going to happen exactly. But she was there when I received this medal. She loved being there with us. She just couldn't, she says in the article, she couldn't go through life without experiencing this with her father.
I can also say one thing. I know that your trip was made possible, and the enjoyment and the experience you had was also due in part by your wonderful partner Anne, who was with you all the way through.
Couldn't do it without her.
and no one can say anything finer than that. Ann has been there. She's met a lot of the veterans and has been very supportive of the projects that we're trying to do here to spread the word on who our veterans are and what they did for this country during that difficult period of time. Bob, I want to thank you very much for the interview, and I would like to say that America appreciates you, and also the youth of America appreciate you. Okay. Bob, I noticed that you have a statue that was given to you while you were in Ravenville. It was a ceremony commemorating those infantrymen, such as yourself, that fought in Europe. Can you tell me a little bit about this statue?
Well, yes, it's a picture of a GI holding his weapon, and he's got his full field pack on, and that's basically what he looked like when he started out, anyway.
And in your own words, why were you giving that statue in Ravenville?
As appreciation for what we did in freeing the country from the Germans.
Bob, there was a time when there were German soldiers that were surrendering to you. Can you tell me about that?
Well, just at the end of the war, we were at Czechoslovakia border, and we had a checkpoint, a road coming in there. And the war was over, just about over. And they were marching in to surrender to us. It's unbelievable. They were marching in day and night, 24 hours a day they marched in. And I was billeted right next to this roadway. And I could hear them. They had some nice singing songs, marching songs and stuff. But they were coming in to surrender. They did not want to surrender to the Russians because the Russians would treat them the same way as they treated the Russian soldiers when they got caught. They killed them. So they knew what would happen to them if the Russians took the Germans. So they came in and surrendered. It's not impossible to put a number on how many came through. But just figure guys walking at a pretty good pace, 24 hours a day. A lot of people coming down that road.
Tell me something. Were they still with their weapons when they came?
Some had weapons. When they come through, they just throw them over in a pile. And many of them didn't even bring their weapons with them. They just wanted to get onto our side and away from the Russians, because the Russians were coming in from the other end.
Do you remember what town you were in Czechoslovakia at that time?
Oh, at the end of the war. What the heck was that?
If I mentioned Sudetenland, were you up in the Sudetenland?
I really don't know.
Were you in the large cities such as Prague?
No, we never entered Czechoslovakia. We stopped. It was given to Russia in the Yalta Conference, and that was the end of it. And they were taking it.
So you were basically on the German-Czech border at that time?
Yes, on the German-Czech border, and they were coming in to surrender to us that they wouldn't have to be butchered by the Russians. Basically, that's what the whole thing was. But you never saw so many people marching in. It was impossible, you think.
I want to ask you a question about the equivalence of students in Europe from, let's say, junior high school age, we'll pick an age of 12, through students into the end of high school, age 17, 18. How would you describe the educational level of students in America as far as their knowledge with respect to the Second World War?
There's no comparison. The European student is taught about World War II, whereas the American students are taught very little about World War II. In fact, you'd almost think it never happened. I've spoke to people about it. They don't even know what I'm talking about when I talk about the invasion and all that stuff. And it seems, well, it's ridiculous, but there is a difference. If you're conquered and you're living under the tyranny of the enemy, you're gonna remember it, and you're gonna bring it. You're gonna tell your children about it. We didn't have that over here. We have GIs that went over and come home. A lot of people never went over and come home. Never went over. So it's different. If you don't teach it in the schools, kids aren't gonna know about it. But we really don't teach it in school.
Do you think there is a effort by the classrooms here in America today and the educational system to intentionally keep this part of history away for our students?
Well, that's true, but I don't know really why they're doing it, whether they think it's not worth teaching or what. But I don't think they teach much, because I talk to young people, they don't even know what D-Day was. I mean, it's strange. And over in Europe, they got it all. Of course, it's a whole different thing. They were living under the Germans. We never were. We never were invaded. So maybe that's the whole story. But it seems to me they don't want them to know too much about it, or they teach it. It's still American history. In fact, we had more about the Boston Tea Party when I went to school than they have today about this stuff. About World War II. The Revolution, they cover that, but they don't cover this. That's what I feel. I don't know if there's a political reason or whatever.
I know you fought in Europe, and this is a question I often ask veterans who fought in the Pacific. Do you think the American government was correct in ordering the bomb to be dropped on Hiroshima during the Second World War?
I do think so. They started it. They bombed Pearl Harbor. If they had the bomb at that time, they'd have dropped it on us for sure. But they didn't have it. We didn't have it either. But what they got, they asked for. That's what I look at.
At any time, did you ever hear that there may be possible orders that once the war was over in Europe, you would be shipped over to Japan?
My division was on its way down. That's where we were going to go. And the end of my 30-day furlough was D-Day, VJ Day. And now they got a division, they had a few of these divisions. They don't know what to do with them. But we were slated to go down the South Pacific. But we never went.
Were you aware that had the Americans gone to the Pacific and not dropped the bomb, the casualty rate would have been over 1 million soldiers?
That would have been a tough war. That would have been tough. All of them through. They would have had more people to shoot at. They would have been shooting at more people. And they'd killed a lot more people. I think the bomb saved a lot of American lives. Probably saved Japanese lives too. Because a lot of them would have been killed. More of them.
At the beginning of the war, you came into the port of Le Havre. Tell me about the end of the war. How did you go home?
Well, going home, we went through Camp Lucky Strike, and then back to Le Havre, actually. And where I stepped off a landing barge onto Europe, going into Europe, when I stepped off, coming off, I went out the same way. It was within 50 feet of where I was dropped off coming in. And I walked from there, walked up, walked over to Czechoslovakia, came back all the way back, and within 50 feet of where I stepped into Europe, I stepped out. It was probably even less than that, probably 20 feet. It was the same beach, the same everything. We went out to the same dock and got on the SS United States and came home.
I've got a question for you. This is known as Time, Glory, and Deeds, and we will not forget them. It's the American Battle and Monuments Commission in Europe. Can you tell me a little bit about the program from your knowledge? Bob, I notice you're holding a brochure which refers to the American Battle and Monuments Commission. Can you tell me what cemetery is pictured here in the bottom? Is that Normandy or is that Luxembourg? It's the Brittany American ceremony.
It's Brittany American.
Okay, were you there?
Yes.
Tell me about that, and tell me who you met while you were there. What was the gentleman's name? Do you recall? Was it a Mr. Walter Benjamin?
Walter Benjamin, right.
Okay. And while you were there, I know that there was a ceremony, the lowering of the flag. And is that the flag that I see that you have in your home today?
Yes, this one.
Uh-huh.
This flag can never be unfurled.
Okay.
It always has to be unfurled because it was retired.
Okay. And once it's retired, it can never be...
Never be flown again.
It can never be flown again. And this was given to you...
By Walter Benjamin.
And it was a special situation to honor you.
Yes.
And why were you being honored?
I helped him lower it down. We folded it up, and then he handed it to me, and he gave me a paper dedicating it to me, which was very nice.
Was that one of your highlights of your trip?
I think it was.
Okay. I believe this is a copy from the American Battle Monuments Commission. The flag that you received, and this is a actual copy of that. And I'd like Anne, can you read this? Come over here for a second, because it's a little difficult for me to read. Okay? What does it actually say?
Mr. Walter Benjamin is a former United States Marine, and he is superintendent of the American Battle Monuments Commission. It says this certificate testifies that this United States flag was flown over the Brittany American Cemetery and Memorial on September 14th, June 2014 at 0630 hours, and presented to Mr. Bob Thomas, I Company, 3rd Battalion, 87th Division, Golden Acorn. On behalf of the American Battle Monuments Commission, we thank you for all you do in service to our country. And this is a very cherished flag to both of us to have in Bob's archives of flags and medals and so on.
Bob, I also want to make mention of 3 individuals who made it possible for you to come back to Normandy and Belgium, and as well as Holland. One of them, of course, is Valerie Cardin, who lives in France. And also we have David Clare, who's from Long Island, New York, whose father was also a veteran. And David, along with his good friend Ralph Peters, assisted you during your trip, and I think you refer to them as your left and right arm.
Right.
And without both David and Ralph, the trip may have had some difficulties, but these guys made sure that you came through. And it's because of their love for the veteran and their dedication to individuals such as yourself. We're fortunate to have him here, to have him with you, and of course, we can't forget to mention Ralph Peters and once again Valerie Cardin, and we'd like to thank all of them for everything that they've done to have you come.
Dominique, Potier.
And let's not forget to mention Dominique Potier's name as well, who was also instrumental in bringing this together, and they continue to do so for many other veterans from the United States.